It's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and would you all stand while Claudia Smart leads us in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Byron, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilman Ridgway.
Here.
Councilman Rose. Here. Councilwoman Smart.
Here.
Councilman Warner.
Here.
Supervisor McFarland.
Here. This is the first of two public hearings. The first one is the fireman's contract. There are handouts available with that contract. That handout happens to be what was submitted to the town board for their consideration. After meeting with them, we reviewed it and reduced the amount asked for from $200,215 to $180,000. I will now open this up to the public hearing. I would ask that you stand, state your name, and if you have, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Read the call. You need to read the call of the meeting.
I'm not sure what you
got it.
Oh, okay.
Notice is hereby given that the preliminary budget of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 1993 has been completed and filed in the office of the town clerk, the Volney Municipal Bill Center, where it's available for inspection by any interested persons during regular office hours. Further notice is hereby given that the Volney Town Board will meet and review the said preliminary budget and hold a public hearing thereon in the Volney Municipal Center at 7 p.m. on the 12th day of November 1992. All persons wishing to speak for and against the budget will be heard. There will also be a public hearing on the fire contract with the Volney Fire Corporation at the same time. Pursuant to Section 113 of the town law, the proposed salaries of the following town officers are hereby specified. Supervisor 82,880, Justices 2 at 8786, 4 councilmen at 3312, tax collector at 3048, assessor at 1 at 555, 2 at 3,924, town clerk 10,5, and highway superintendent 30,000. Order of the Volney Town Board. Byron Rowley, town clerk.
Thank you, Byron. All right, now I will open that up to the public. It's a public hearing. Again, if you would stand, state your name, and make your comments, or you can ask questions. We are dealing right now with the fireman's contract only. Does anybody have anything to say about it? Yes.
My name's Alan Kestner. On the front page here, the numbered paragraphs, paragraph 3, talking about increases on buildings and grounds. Right at the end there it says, last but not least, an unanticipated expenditure to pave parking area of Station 2. Do you know who wrote this? Or just signed it?
This was presented to the town board by the volunteer fire department.
It says Board of Directors, but do you know who wrote that, last but not least, unanticipated? Is this referring to something that was brought up at the last town meeting? Would you say?
It might be. Might well be.
Well, they could have phrased that a little bit more positively, I would think. I see on the back that it's $4,975. And I would like to know if you know when this expenditure was put onto the budget. Has it been since the incident with the paving at firehouse number 2, or was this on there before that?
This was included in their budget when they presented it a few weeks ago.
After this incident or before the incident of the paving? Do you know?
After it was paved.
Well, this doesn't say very much about the board of directors of the volunteer fire department.
As your opinion, sir. Any other comments? Or questions? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn the public hearing.
Second. Byron, will you poll the board?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor Nick Farland.
Aye. I would now like to call the meeting to order for the public hearing to cover the preliminary budget. Again, this is a public hearing, and we will be glad to answer any questions or hear any comments. You have received a copy of it. I'd like to commend and thank the rest of the town board for their time and their commitment in putting together what I feel is a very realistic and responsible document. I will comment on a few of the items. The town board salaries remain the same as they were in 1990 or 1993. The justices received a 3% increase. The supervisor, his salary remains the same as 1990's salary. The tax collector's salary remained the same. Budget officer's salary remains the same. The two of the assessors remain the same, with the chief assessor being raised. The town clerk received an approximately $1,200 increase in his wage to compensate him for the medical expenses, his hospitalization that was removed from his wages last year. Those are being reinstated. In lieu of the hospitalization, he is receiving the same amount to cover those costs. Attorney's fees should remain the same. Elections, we increased the services of the election inspectors and those that man the polls, but their hourly wages increased from $5 to $6 per hour. Police, the constable received a modest increase, 3%. The control of dogs received about a $500 increase. I know you haven't seen it yet, but on the agenda, under resolutions, the dog control officer's position is going to be added to, so that we will have a deputy dog control officer. We anticipate that they will be splitting their wages. No dog control officer can be on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. He has to have some time off. And what we are going to do is have a dog control officer, and the deputy dog control officer will probably take care of the feeding, daily feeding of them, and the dog control officer will be doing the legwork around the town. The arrangement will be made between them to, when they want to take some time off, they can do each other's jobs. The superintendent of highways received an increase in wages to $30,000. We reinstated the historian's position at a modest salary. And it's on page 3. Slight increases were given to the planning board and to the zoning board of appeals personnel. We have increased debt service, principally due to the assessment services, the data collection and revaluation that we are going through. Our interest, as far as income is concerned, is down markedly this year, simply because of the interest rates that are paid are much lower. Conversely, the interest we are paying is considerably lower too. Moving on to the highway budget. There are increase in the personal services for almost all categories. Now, those increases do not necessarily mean that the employees in these categories, general repairs, machinery, snow removal, are going to get that much more money. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is if overtime is necessary, there is the money there to cover it. It is not meant to be spent. Their wages, on average, we reviewed with Bob Kerfine the salaries of his men, and on average, they have a slightly less than 4% wage increase on salaries. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If you have any comments or wish to speak, please do so. Yes.
I'm Shirley Vinch, and I was wondering about the constable's position. Do we have a town constable at this time?
Yes, we do. Bill Crumpton. Bill, would you stand up, please?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Your name, please.
Barbara McEwen. Has there been changes in expenses that you're raising all these salaries? And can you justify raising these salaries when so many people are losing their jobs and being out of work and all of this? Can you justify it?
Yes.
How can you justify taking more money away from people in the town? How can you justify it?
The salaries are justified when you consider the jobs that some of these people are doing.
Well, I'm sure Granby, those people are doing very good, and they're considering decreasing the taxes there. And in the Oswego town, they say there's no increase. Volney, with all these businesses, how come they've got to raise these taxes?
The tax increase is minimal. It's 2.4.
It doesn't matter, minimal. Minimal to us and minimal to you are two different things. I mean, even a little bit takes a lot out of people. when they're not getting any. And also, this, deputy dog catcher, you're gonna pick up cats too? You're gonna need them too? Diane was expected to be on 24-hour call without a beeper. She was never asked if she needed a deputy or not. Is it because she's a woman that she needed to be on 24-hour call? I don't understand this deputy business. That's all I've got to say right now.
Yes.
Ms. Turner, you just said there's a 2% difference increase. I saw in the paper that the taxes were going to jump from 9-something to 12-something. I don't have the paper. Where are you getting the 2%?
Legitimate question.
Oh, it was 7-something.
Yes, okay. The 92 town tax rate was $7.84 per 1,000. Now, when that was levied, the previous fiscal officer left off one whole page of appropriations that should have been included. That amounted to $79,020. By very careful spending this year, we will be almost broke at the end of this year because that $79,000 was never put into the budget or never put into the taxes and should have been. That amounts to $3.33 that should have been included in the taxes for this year. That then totals $11.17. By your vote on the fireman's pension, I feel that is a mandate that this community is wanting the pension program for the firemen. That passed 581 to 1,086 voted in favor of it. That mandate, I feel, adds, and that cost $25,000, adds an additional $1.05 to your taxes, for which, if you added it to the previous year's budget or tax rate, or subtracted it from the present one, makes little difference, it comes to $12.22 versus this year's of $12.49, which is a 2.4% increase.
That was another thing I wanted to question before the vote came up in the paper. It said that it was going to cost 74 cents, and now it's $1.05. Why the difference?
This
we
is,
voted on, when we voted.
this is in the tax rate. This is the tax rate I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with it costing individual homeowners.
What it was is the way the resolution was for the voting. You had to state it what it would be in a regular year without any payment for previous years of service. There are firemen who have over 5 years of service that during this initial 5 to 8 years phase-in of the program will be being paid for the current year and back years. And the difference between the regular rate once the payback is paid for and a regular year is the difference between the 74 cents and the $1.05. That's temporary.
Any other questions? Yes.
My name is Marie Austin. Regarding the tax rate, it says the current tax rate is $7.84. It's going up to $12.49. That's about a 40% increase in taxes.
59.3.
Okay, well, I don't have my calculator, thank you. However, and then you said there was some type of error for the $79,000. Are you accounting for the $30,000 that we got from the state that come in the first of the year? Are you deducting that $30,000 from the $79 that you were saying is missing, or? Is that how you paid for the paper shredder and your name tags up front and all the other expenditures that you took on over the year? And if we're short 79,000, as you say, can you tell me how much money that you borrowed to cover these expenses over the year?
As I explained early in the year, there were sufficient leeway in the budget to cover ourselves through the year if we were very careful. And I feel we have been, and we are going to be just about out of money at the end of the year. The $10,000 that is appropriated to reduce taxes, that will be just about it, remaining in the bank at the end of the year. We'll be almost busted.
You didn't answer my other question. Does that include the $30,000 you got from the state at the first of the year that I'm counting? Are you deducting that $30,000 from that 79?
No, I'm not.
So that is offsetting the 79 or 70, whatever figure you come up with, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So now we're down to...
Yes, in fact, I indicated in my, when I called this to the town's attention early this year, I indicated that that would help offset it.
So then to say, then to go back to these figures that have been published in the paper, that's really an incorrect amount, that 2% is the increase. It is closer to almost 40 to 50% increase. Is that not correct?
The, we voted for that. Yeah, that's part of the budget. No. Your question again, Marie?
You have stated that the former board is responsible for this tax increase, basically is what you're saying, because of a miscalculation by Supervisor Budget Officer Kitts, who I must say has gone to Texas. He can't even be here to respond, so I'll do it for him. We had a check come in for $30,000 the first of the year from the state, because in our budget we were told to put a zero. There would be no money from the state. You're saying there's a $70,000 error that you had to account for. So if $30,000 come in the first of the year, you have to deduct that, which leaves a $40,000 error. Is that correct?
The figures are
Pretty close.
pretty close.
Right.
79,000, and the actual, what we received was around 25,000.
And there was also a contingency fund of what, 25,000 at that time?
15.
Okay. So, in all aspects, then there isn't this big increase, this small increase of 2%. In actuality, the increase of taxes are about 50% increase overall.
Marie, the problem is that I don't think you're listening.
I'm listening
All
very
right,
carefully.
we still have to cover not only 79,000 in this coming budget, not only that 79,000, but additional bonding that page covered. There was not only 79,000 for 1993, but additional bonding of around 30,000.
But you said, I just asked you what you borrowed, and you said you didn't borrow any money, but you had enough money to cover everything.
We did not borrow money this year, with the exception of the bonding to pay assessment services for the data collection and
Why are you
revaluation.
telling me you're bonding to cover the 70,000 then?
No, not at all.
Isn't that what you just said?
No. We covered the contract for data collection and revaluation.
Right. You bonded. You appropriated $100,000 to a bond for that, I understand that. But what you also did is you are negotiating raises right now for everyone. Maybe if you cut some of these raises and some of the budget expenses in here, you wouldn't have to raise our taxes to 12-something. That's a major increase for a tax, for a town to have a tax increase like that, especially in these times when people are getting laid off. And Miller's is talking about being laid off. Northern Ready Mix, all you have to do is go by there and watch the people picketing up there. They're losing their jobs. And what you're doing is by increasing these taxes, you're putting a major burden on the industry in this area. And if you cut, I mean, now you said $1,200 for insurance for Byron, and in the paper it says $12,000. Is that a typo? Yeah.
I would hope so.
Now, why is Byron getting covered for insurance when no other town official gets insurance?
The reason is, at the end of last year, when you were on the board, you took that medical insurance away from him.
From everyone. No elected official was...
Not everyone.
Just the highway department, full-time employees were to get insurance, that was a recommendation by Blue Cross Blue Shield, you're correct. And one of the things that was stipulated, anybody over 65 on Medicare, the insurance will double. So I can see why it's gonna be $1,200. But I'm asking why you're covering insurance for one elected official when all your elected officials are not getting insurance.
Bob Kerfine is an elected official, is he not?
Okay, but he is considered a full-time elected official.
No,
He's not, Marie.
Well, he, all right.
And Byron works full-time also, Marie. The concern was that originally, there are, I believe, were 3 officials years ago, and when I say years ago, the last time I was on the board, I believe that it was the highway superintendent, I believe the town clerk, and I believe at that time, the building inspector, who was David Tyndall, also received insurance. Previous boards had done this. Byron was one of the 3, to the best of my recollection, that did receive insurance at town expense. When David Tyndall resigned and retired as building inspector, the new building inspector did not receive insurance. But Byron and highway superintendent did. To have eliminated Byron's insurance when, from my point of view, Byron is certainly a full-time employee, if beginning at 7 o'clock in the morning and ending at 4:30, being here Saturdays morning so that people can get stamps and tickets for the solid waste area. If that is not full-time, I don't know what is, and I feel that he was justified and is justified to receive that insurance.
Well, the town clerk can also set his hours.
Certainly he can.
And he is not expected to be here for 40 hours.
Keep this office open. And Byron is here, and his
That's why you're the
knowledge,
deputy town clerk.
and skills are essential to the operation of the town at this time.
Well, if those hours are too many, he does have a deputy town clerk, and he also can point up to 3 deputy town clerks where he could split it if he had to, if he thought that was too much. Being a full-time town clerk, he's doing that by choice. That is not a requirement. If you make that a requirement, that's one thing, but as of right now, it's not a requirement.
make that a town
Okay.
requirement.
All right.
Is there any other,
Yeah, I do have one more question. I want to know why certain people are getting raises and other people are not. Obviously, you said it's based on what they do. Well, I can't believe that the town constable does any more than the planning board and the zoning board. I know that Jeannie and Kevin do a lot. They come here every month and get a report. The town constable doesn't make every meeting, but I'm sure he does fulfill his duties. I'm not saying that he doesn't, but I know Jeannie and Kevin come here every month. We hear what they do. Why are they not being considered for a raise? It seems, I thought this was $1,600 across the board, you said. So is that the 2 chairmen, or is it the board, or what is that on the planning and zoning? And the personal services, it's just for the chair, or is it for the entire board?
The entire board is included in that number, but the chair received higher.
So the chair is receiving the increase as well as the board, is that correct?
I believe.
Okay, that goes down there.
Gene, do you know?
It is, but I don't have the figures here. I didn't bring the worksheets in. The chairman gets a raise, and each one of the members of the board get a raise.
But a greater raise is given to the chairman than to
That's
the members
correct.
of the board. I can't give you the exact numbers.
How do you count the town health?
We're getting 10% versus 4% for the highwaymen.
Say again,
You've got a 10% increase for the town council, is that correct?
10% increase for what town council? Go constable. I don't believe the town constable got a dollar. Well, if you quote from this.
such a small sale?
Such a small sale. What is it? It's to go from 1,600 to 1,750. The town, what is it, town constable?
Yeah, it's only $150.
The town constable got a $150 raise,
Yeah, there's a 10%, right, overall?
approximately.
Okay, can I ask why his raise is such a larger increase compared to the rest?
Yeah, I don't feel that a 3, 4, 5% raise there is significant, very frankly.
You don't think that's significant for a year?
For a year.
Well, then what about the highway then? Why is it not, why is 3 or 4 significant for them?
The wages are considerably higher. I'd like you to know that the wages of our highwaymen, and I don't mean to say there is anything greatly wrong with this or right with it, but their wages are greater than our highway superintendent's wages in many respects. So I feel they're well compensated.
Okay, the figures you were looking for was that the people on the boards are still receiving $960. They now will be receiving $1,008. And the chairman was receiving $1,344, and now will be receiving $1,500.
Did you get that, Marie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just like one more question, then I'll shut up. Would you please just tell me what the price of the paper shredder was? I know that there was some controversy, that was budgeted, apparently. What was the price of that paper shredder?
I don't know.
Well, 350, I think it was.
I don't think it was over 150 at the most.
I believe you're right, Marie. Jim?
Pastor Tim Hemman of the Bristol Hill Church. I was a little confused in reading the amount that our taxes were and are going up to. Could I clarify it? We paid $7.84 per thousand last year. Do you know of any time that what it's been in the past? It seems like it's hovered maybe around $8 per thousand. Has it ever gone over $10 per thousand in the
Yes.
past?
Last year. 91.
91?
Yes, over $10.
Okay. And was that the only year, or what is the mean of it? What is the... I really think that from $7.84 to a $12.49 increase in these difficult times, I would really plead with this board to go back to the drawing board and try to keep it around at least under $10 per thousand.
I will repeat, there should have been another $3.33 automatically added to that 784 figure to cover that $79,000, which would have made your taxes for 1992 $11.17, and that's really where they should have been.
I'd like to make a comment before we go any further, and the people still have a chance to respond here. I think your claim is a little deceptive, Mr. McFarland, because as Marie said, we did receive a check for $29,680, so that wipes out a good share of that $79,000 right there. But there's some other things too. We had some salary increases this year to the tune of $12,591 that you voted and approved in January. You don't call them increases, you call them reinstating, but it's the same difference. An unauthorized bill from the previous town board that was nearly 2 years old was paid to Albany attorney Duncan McCullough for $4,275 for legal fees that were improperly incurred.
Excuse me, Howard, it's a public hearing. When we get to discuss the budget, I think we have time to do that.
These people would like to know this information so they can make their comments. Can I continue?
Sir.
Okay. You said we had to run a tight ship this year because of that, yet you had no problem buying a fax machine, a paper shredder, a voice message phone service for dog control, changing locks on the door, blacktopping the dog kennel parking lot, blacktopping in back of the highway garage, countless other things that were done. You mentioned that we're putting in $5,000 for Parks and Recreation next year. Big deal. We had $5,000 in this year and you didn't use it. Various conferences that weren't budgeted for were attended. I can go on, but I've easily got about $50,000 here that takes a big bite out of that $79,000 that you mentioned. So, but the bottom line here is there's a $4.65 increase, which is nearly 50% increase, and we can't discount that.
Okay, you are also leaving out the fact that you were required by the state to budget for data collection.
No, we
You
were
did
not.
do
No,
it
we
yet.
were not. You show me where that was, Mr. Claudia. You show me that law.
Excuse me, this is a public hearing. Charlie?
Well, I feel, first of all, that when you're talking about a $150 increase over a year, which amounts to, what, $12 a month, it's a little stupid and ridiculous to refer to it as a 10% increase and stress the 10% increase. Secondly, I was here at the budget meeting last year when Howard said, would you believe it, an hour before the meeting, I came up with these salary cuts and laid it on the table, and everybody felt they had to go from there. That's asinine, it's stupid. You don't just play with people's lives by saying an hour before the meeting, I decide I'm going to cut everybody.
I'll remind you, I paid 15% in taxes last year, Charlie.
And I'll remind you that it was cut out, that when you said you saved the taxes, that 79,000 should have been included in that, and that rate should have been charged. You can play games all you want to, but if all of the figures that were in that budget were used to figure the tax rate, that would have been the tax.
That was not my mistake.
It's immaterial whose mistake it was, but it was made, and we should have collected more money, and did not.
Shirley Vinch, and I'd like to know,
Point of order, please.
I'd like to know if our budget is so in poor shape, how can you justify giving all these raises out with the budget being the way that it is?
Could you answer that?
No. I'm here to hear your comments. I'm not going to argue with you.
I didn't want to argue with you, I just asked a question.
Just answer the question.
Answer. In the rear. You.
Susan Huss. Just curious, if there's a tax increase now and it's voted in, and the way I understand it, there was a reevaluate. I've just moved here from out of state, so I'm trying to learn all this. If there was a reevaluation done, which will be for 1993, you have a tax increase now. When that reevaluation comes through on the property for your assessment, are the taxes going to stay up? Are you going to readjust and come down, or what will happen to that?
The revaluation that's going on right now will be for the 94 rule.
Not for until 94.
Right, and there will be a separate budget next year.
And the other thing that I would like to, you said it's not for public comment, but I'd like to say one thing. I'm a resident in the town of Volney now. I grew up here, I lived here, I'm back. I've watched you people on cable television, and I'm amazed that you can even run the town the way there's just constant bickering and fighting. It seems like you ought to listen to the people that are sitting out here and try to figure out what the best interest of everybody is, not 3 versus 2 or 2 versus 3. That's just my opinion.
My name's Alan Kessler. I'm confused about this $79,000. It seems to me that you're telling us that it was supposed to be here, it was supposed to be budgeted, the taxes were supposed to be collected to pay that $79,000, but the taxes were not assessed, so you never got the $79,000. But you managed to squeak through the year without needing the $79,000, and now you're saying that we need the $79,000 this year to make up for what we didn't have last year. That's where you're getting your big increase here, and you can argue all you want about 2%, 2.4%, but I think the Reverend is correct. If you go from $7.84 a thousand to $12.49 a thousand, you have increased $4.65, which is 59.3% increase when relative to $7.84, and I don't see how you can get around that. I have my calculator here. I wish you would show me how you get a 2.4%. The $79,000, we never got it, we never spent it. So why do we need it to get it back this year because we didn't get it last year? I'm confused. The bottom line is, my taxes are going up 59.3%. That's all I know. Whether it's for the firemen, whether it's to, well, whatever it's for, it's 59.3%. You cannot get around that. You can sit up there and you can tell the paper it's 2.4%. Volney board to present budget tonight, but the fact is that it's 59%, over 59% increase. And you sit up there and say you have no comment, and that you can justify all this. I don't see how you can do it, and I don't know where the $79,000 went. If we didn't need it last year and we didn't get it, then why do we need it this year? Because we didn't have it last year? I'm confused.
Yes.
Joyce Turner. The question or comment I have to make is I understood the board, when they did the pay cuts and stuff, that they checked all the areas around us comparable from clerk to clerk, different towns, and that with the hours and the jobs were similar, they brought the pays down so that everybody was pretty much equal. That was my understanding. And then I know they were reinstated in January, but in the hard times, I think if we were that much over everyone else and everybody's having such a hard time, I don't see why they're being reinstated and getting more raises. I just don't agree with that. Too many people can't make it now.
Any other comments? Yes.
Byron McEwen, could you tell us who the budget officer is?
Yes, Byron Rowley.
He's the historian and the town clerk, right? 3 jobs, huh? 3 pages. Pretty
He
good.
acted in that capacity at my request.
No problem.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none?
Actually, there's one.
Yes.
My name's Eddie Bach. I don't really live here. I live in California. I'm kind of passing through, but my family does. I've noticed that, it seems like Granby is very highly taxed. Scribe is kind of good, but Volney is also a very good area to live. When you start raising the taxes, you're going to lose people that are thinking of moving out of the city, moving from Granby or maybe from Syracuse down here to this area when they find out the taxes aren't all that great in Volney anymore because you guys are raising them. So they're not even going to move into this area. Why keep raising? Why don't you just, keep them low, keep them, where everyone can handle it, especially during this recession, and then, you'll get more people moving into the area. Otherwise, you get up like Granby is, no one wants to come into this area. Keep your taxes down, keep them reasonable.
And welcome back. Yes.
Will that scare new shopping centers away?
It is.
Those taxes going up?
It's slated to go in, yes.
No, he said we would scare them away.
Oh, scare them away?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Will the town board consider going back and cutting any of these expenses after hearing the public comment tonight, or is this already set in stone? Do you plan on having another session and going back and trimming this?
This is a public hearing. We will be discussing it when we get to it, when we get to the resolutions.
When will you be voting on this budget, can I ask?
There's a resolution later on this evening in the general meeting.
You'll be voting on it tonight, you're saying?
We probably will be, yes.
So that means you're not going to go back and take any of these comments under consideration?
We will discuss it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Questions? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Second. Byron, would you poll the board?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose. Aye. Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. I'd like to call the regular meeting to order. for the sake of our television crews. Byron, will you call the roll?
Councilman Ridgway.
Here.
Councilman Rose.
Here.
Councilwoman Smart.
Here.
Councilman Warner.
Here.
Supervisor McFarland.
Here. Our first resolution involves the minutes of the October 8th meeting, and I'll move that the minutes for that meeting, October 8, 1992, having been distributed, they be approved without reading. Do I hear it moved? Or I moved it, excuse me. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No, and I'd just like to explain, I've been voting no on this every meeting this year, and just so you get some frame of reference here why I'm doing that. On page 5, second paragraph, it says, and keep in mind, this is the official record of this town. It will go in the files, and anyone that wants to refer back to these meetings will read this, and this is all they're going to get information-wise. Councilman Warner asked how long before anyone came to look at the problem, referring to Mrs. DeVoe's driveway problem. There's no answer to that, just a question mark at the end. Mrs. DeVoe said that everything was fine until she complained to Councilman Rose. I think that implies that maybe I'm the cause of the problems. The highway crew had eaten under her tree and drank her lemonade and ate her cookies until Howard was notified, and then they would not come near her place. Once again, it looks like I'm the bad guy here. That's the official record. No.
Howard, you had a draft of these minutes 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you had every opportunity, if that was a complaint of yours, to let Byron know, and they could have been corrected.
If you want to give me a pay increase, I will do Byron's job for him, but I'm not going to rewrite all these minutes every month.
Well, you can approve them or not approve them. But if you do not approve them because you do not like the way they are written, then you should change them. And you can change them at any point in time. Byron, will you, that's done.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
I will vote no, because I feel that, like I stated last month, there's some times that the minutes should be read, and it would not hurt once in a while to read them.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Next, I'll move that the, I probably shouldn't do this one. Next one.
I move that the supervisor be authorized to make the following transfers from A1990.4 contingency to A1450.1 election salary $84.75. From A1990.4 contingency to A1450.4 elections contractual $466.74. From DA5110.4 general repairs to DA5142.4 snow removal $1,000.
Moved by Claudia Smart.
Second.
Jim.
Could I ask what that last one is, general repairs to snow removal, what that is exactly?
That's so he can buy shoes for his snowplows to plow this winter. That'd count as used up. He has nothing left in it to put shoes on the snowplows for the winter drawing. Snowplows.
Will you give the roll call, Byron?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. I'll move that vouchers number 408 through 461 in the amount of $23,612.56 in the general fund, and vouchers numbers 247 through 271 in the amount of $57,362.09 from the highway fund, having been audited, the supervisor is hereby authorized to pay same from funds available. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye, only to those I paid. The ones I did not pay, Faye Sanford went to a conference, $570. Marshall and Swift, no one seemed to know what it was at the meeting, $128.95, so I wasn't going to sign it. Assessment Services, $4,500. Ed Kewen, $165.32. Gosh Supply, $4,038.60. And LH Septic, $4,600.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye. Marshall Swift is a manual for assessors that lists accepted values to value different types of properties at. Is one of the only two generally accepted sources for that type of material.
Councilman Warner.
I'll vote aye to the ones that I signed, and according to this, supply 5388, got supply lights, highway garage, $4,038.60, and I still maintain him being an appointed member on one of the boards that we should look into legality of doing business there. Marshall Swift for assessor's material, and at the time they didn't know what it was. The month before, I didn't sign one from the same company, and $128.95, an Ed Cohen expense account, $152.32, and assessment services. And I stated before that I did not vote for assessment services to employ them, and I'm not paying their bill.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next item on the budget, the next item on the agenda is communications. I have written a memorandum to Jerry Tarbell, Fire Chief, and the subject of that memorandum is Seneca Hill fire hydrants. And I'll read that memorandum. As you are aware, there was a serious house fire in the Seneca Hill area in Volney in early September. The next few days, I received several telephone calls from area residents alleging 1, inoperable hydrants, and 2, insufficient water pressure at the hydrants. The second of these two problems was a result of the draining of the Seneca Hill standpipe a few years ago. Until the standpipe is returned to service or a new water line is installed in the area, you will continue to have insufficient water pressure for the hydrants. In the meantime, will you please survey the hydrants in the affected area and restore them to operable condition? Should any of them require repair, please advise the work to be accomplished and its approximate cost. I would appreciate a report on this project prior to our next regular board meeting on December 10. Thank you for your cooperation. I have held back in doing anything on this particular subject because I was hoping that the Seneca Hill campus would be a reality by this time and that work would be proceeding. Among the benefits of having that there was that the county was going to put in new roads, a new water main for the area, and sewage for that area. I have since learned that the options on that property have been picked up by the Oswego Hospital, and it is the intent of the county to go ahead with that new water line with greatly increased pressure to serve the whole area. There will also be sewer services that will be available in that area. So the water problem will be taken care of. It probably won't occur until next year, however.
We're on that subject, Mr. Supervisor, can I just make a few comments? Sure. I've received a number of calls being the chair of that district, the water district, and the people have expressed some concern about it. And I brought this to the attention of the supervisor. He responded with this letter to Mr. Tarbell. And I made the people that have contacted me aware of the fact that this water holding tank, the repair of it, the cost is going to be borne by those people in that district, which may be very expensive. We don't know yet until we get the particulars on it. But in any case, I assured them that they're not lacking for any fire protection out there. They get the same coverage as everybody else in the town gets. It's just that without those hydrants working, there could be some delay that they might have benefited from if they had the hydrant working and the pressure flowing to accommodate the lines. But so I left it in their court, actually. If they want to pursue this with us, I think we'll act more quickly on it. But right now, it's going to take some time to figure this all out and find out where we stand on it. So I have spoken to them. I reported that information to them. And I don't know if anyone's here tonight from that water district, but at public comment time, they're welcome to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Committee report, assessors. Claudia?
Okay, Faye Sanford received the following report from Assessment Services Company. The following report represents the status of the Town of Volney Data Collection and Revaluation Project as of November 11th, 1992. This report covers data collection and valuation progress to date and is in accordance with our contractual requirements. The field review continues on schedule. To date, 2,015 parcels have been reviewed. The assessors have had the opportunity to accompany the field reviewer in order to become familiar with the valuation documents. During the revaluation process, the field reviewer has data collected and valued new construction items. The cooperation of the assessors, the town board, and the property owners is greatly appreciated. Please do not hesitate to bring to our attention any questions or concerns you might have. Sincerely, Jay Beitner, appraiser.
Thank you. Planning Board, Kevin Conley here.
Good evening. Good to see so many people here tonight. I was told a couple months ago by a member of the town that, gee, Kevin, your reports are getting shorter and shorter. What's going on? Well, tonight, if you don't mind, I'm going to take just a few minutes. We do have a lot of stuff to cover, and I'll try to make it worthwhile for everybody. Just very quickly, our next meeting will be next Tuesday, which is the 17th of this month, here at the Town Hall at 7 p.m. Last month, we attended a 25th anniversary Oswego County Planning Board Conference. And it's a combination seminar conference. They bring in speakers from out of state. Unfortunately, I don't think it was one of the most interesting conferences. I don't know how you felt about it. I thought you were falling asleep during part of it there. But it wasn't one of the most exciting conferences they've had, but I was very impressed by the attendance of our town at this meeting. It meant for a lot of us to leave work. I know in my case to leave work early, but you know, I think the training is important in that. From the planning board, I know Bill Pierce attended, Gary Standard attended, Emery Woodruff attended, and he's having a tough time getting around right now. And our code enforcement officer, Ed Kuhn, was there. And I think that it was a very, I don't know if any other township was as well represented at this conference. Among some of the discussions, we are trying to form a planning federation in this county, and what that would be is allow the townships and the villages and the municipalities to have more input on the county, with the county, and what's discussed at these things, training for the various townships, and to cause a interrelationship of communication between the various townships. A lot of the stuff that's happening now in the county affects more than one town. If Scythe Energies goes in, it's going to have an impact well beyond Scriba. There's a lot of that going around. The shopping plaza that we have coming in here could impact beyond our limits. Obviously, the city of Fulton has been concerned about it. I've been personally, I was put on as interim chairman of the Planning Federation, and I did have an opportunity to speak at this conference. And I got to tell you, though, I'm a little disappointed. It just feels that at this point, the Oswego County Planning Board, for some reason or another, I don't know why, they seem to have a lot of other priorities going on right now. And there hasn't been a whole lot of progress made on this, and it's going to be a little disappointing. They seem to lose the resolutions, they seem to lose the bylaws, they set up a meeting and word never gets out. So that's been a little disappointing, and I'm going to try to see what we can do about getting them going on it a little bit more. Something that we've been working on for a long time in trying in our position to recognize areas that you folks have problems with or are concerned about where maybe we as boards can help has been information. One of the things that we do is when somebody does come to us and needs something done that could possibly impact neighbors or the community, we usually have a public hearing. The normal way of notifying people of the public hearing has been to put an ad in the Oswego Valley News. I don't know how many of you people go in the Oswego Valley News to specifically look for public notices. If you don't, it's not going to stand out and appear to you. I've missed my own public notices more than once. So we've put our heads together to try to come up with a way of improving this process at a low cost to the town. You know, we don't want to go in every paper. We don't want to be writing letters to everybody all the time. It's very expensive, and we just don't have the staff to do that. So what we have come up with, and we've worked on for the last few months, is an idea of letting people know. And this was something that I think I originally saw downstate when I was visiting some cousins down there. And then we received the support of the town board on this, and I got the results tonight, and I hope everybody likes it. And what this would be is this is what it looks like, okay? What it would be is if a person, let's say somebody's having a variance request or subdivision approval on a certain piece of land, we would give this to them a week or so in advance and request that they post this on their property where everybody could see it. And we'll get the particulars down, but basically so that people driving by will know that this particular piece of land is a subject for either a variance or some subdivision approval. It has been known, I mean, it has happened where somebody forgets to mention to his neighbors that maybe he's going to be putting a shop in or dividing his property into several pieces and putting houses on it. And this will allow you, it's a reusable sign. We discussed the idea of having different signs for each time, and it just, to me, it seemed too expensive. This sign comes with a very sturdy frame. You if you're an applicant, you would be given this sign by the code enforcement officer. We haven't roughed it, and there may be something you may sign because we need the sign back. This isn't cheap, so we would probably ask you to either give us a deposit or something so that we can get the sign back when you're done in reasonable condition. And then you would put the sign, let's say, near the road, and just put your foot on that little lower ledge there and push down, and it'll go into the ground. And it's very solid, very sturdy, and I think it'll last a long time. Okay? If you got any comments about it, let us know afterwards. Like I said, what we're trying to do is, there's no charge for this. As far as I know, there's no plans, there's no fees, there's no intentions to charge you anything. Like I said, the only thing we would need is to let you know that they aren't cheap, and we're going to need them back when you get done with them. Well, that's a problem. Let's hope nobody's going to do that, because that could be a problem. If anybody has any comments or questions about it or any good ideas about it, let me know or let any of the town board members know, and we'll certainly try to act on them.
If they don't sign back, don't grant the request.
Oh, I think that's a pretty good idea.
If you want it granted, just go seal it.
But one of the leading complaints we've always received in the past is somebody coming to the meeting at the last minute and says, I didn't know anything about it, I didn't know this was happening. In fact, I think in reference to the public hearing on site plan approval for the shopping center, I think we had people come up and say, gee, I didn't even know this was coming in here, I wish I had had more time. And, you know, this hopefully will give you people some knowledge. And then you got the number of the town hall, and you can call, and, you know, there's usually a calendar there, or maybe Byron can have a little copy of it and have dates of public hearings on there for their use. So, there's a couple things I would have liked to have changed about it. Maybe if we get some more made up, we may not want to have a white surface on it. They tell me it's cleanable, it's like a hard plexiglass substance. It does stand out, it's very visible, but if it looks like it's getting dirty, next time around we may have to go with another color. You know. But I thought red, white, and blue was very appropriate for the season, you know.
How many do we have?
4. I think that's all we're going to need for now, to be honest with you, because if we get them back, we never usually have more than 2 or 3 public hearings a month, and it's been a little quiet lately. I'd like to take just a moment now, because there have been a couple concerns expressed, and I mean, Gene may want to follow up on it just a little bit, but we'd like to take a couple minutes of your time. And we've been doing this for, I think it's going on 3 years now, and during that course of time, you have sent us off to various conferences and training programs. So we've been allowed to get pretty knowledgeable about zoning and planning in the last couple of years, and we very much appreciate that, because we are here to work for you people, and we need to know what we're doing in order to be able to do that effectively. And it's been beneficial. And I'd like to just say that, you know, we've been appointed to a position. From what we've learned, zoning is not here to handcuff people, okay? It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to support you people. If you have a house going in, that's probably going to be the single most expensive investment a lot of you are going to make in your lives. What zoning is supposed to do is allow you, by knowing where the zoning of the property that you're going into, allow you a certain degree of confidence that over the coming years, the character of the neighborhood will be maintained. You'll have a general idea of what can go next to you or what can go nearby you or something like that. Zoning is not anti-business, okay? Zoning is pro-business. Businesses coming into an area, they'd like to be able to go down to a town hall and know what they got to do, what they have to have signed, what they have to receive to get into a certain location. Businesses normally bring people in. People are the same way. If you have a person who's going to spend $100 grand or whatever for a house, and they start running that much these days, they're going to be concerned about what the area is like that they're going into. Is there controls over unwanted or uncontrolled development? Zoning serves a purpose. We as residents some time ago voted on our zoning laws. We as your chairman are there to enforce those laws. Gene on the zoning board makes interpretations to ensure that the message of the zoning is being enforced. We as a planning board have to follow the zoning laws that are in effect and try to guide development to make it more customer-friendly or more people-friendly, or try to follow the guidelines by our master plan. We have some situations that come before us, and it makes it very difficult. We have tried to work with residents as much as possible. There's been a number of times where subdivision requests have come to us on a certain night, and we have granted them that night. You know, if there's a person that needs something, if it's small, if it's not major, or somebody's got a big problem, we've granted those right away. Why? Because we represent you people as town members, and we can see that we can do that without causing undue hardship or harm. If somebody's got a big development, then hey, we ask them to provide us with certain material, and we ask that of everybody. And I think Jean does the same thing. She's granted some requests very quickly, others take a while. The biggest comment that I get when people talk to me about it is, hey, just treat everybody the same way. Don't show favoritism to anybody, don't give anybody special treatment, treat everybody the same way, and follow the laws. And that's what we're here for. We take an oath when we get started. We have some situations that come before us that make that very difficult. One of the situations before us right now is in Mr. Dunsmore on Route 176, which is Whitaker Road, over by the airport. County Route 176. 176, which is Whitaker Road, which is over by the airport. Now here we have a situation. A very nice gentleman, a nice guy. He has an archery shop, which is basically a home occupation on his property. A few years back, he got a building permit to put a garage onto his property. I think it was understood right then and there that the intention was to have a home occupation. Home occupation is something that's permitted anywhere in this county. Again, our zoning laws are not there to prevent somebody from doing something. It just tries to control the impact on neighbors and the community as a whole. Anybody can operate a small business in their home under some, certain restrictions. Over time, some people become successful in that business, and they want to grow. Well, then you sometimes can run into a problem. That section of Whitaker Road, or 176, is zoned R1. It's the most restrictive zoning ordinance that we have. A comment was made, there's a lot of businesses along there. The R1 zone section does not have a lot of businesses on it. Ives Meat Market is in an agricultural zone. The other business is Vecchio Construction. He's in an industrial portion on the other side of the road, down the road. There may be a couple small signs there, but again, those are maybe home occupations. The area is predominantly one-family homes. This gentleman, Mr. Dunsmore, would like to put up a barn-type structure for an indoor archery range. Probably a very nice thing to do. And again, there's nothing against that. Point is, we have zoning laws. Our zoning laws clearly say what can be in an R1 zone. They are very restrictive. Why? Because people who live predominantly in nice one-family homes like to try to control the effect of their neighborhood. If they want to do something commercial, we have commercially zoned property. We have industrially zoned property to do that. This situation is a very cut and dried situation, I think. It's a very clear situation. What can be done if we're going to comply by our zoning laws is very simple. That type of structure is not permitted in an R1 zone. A variance for something like that, Gene can comment on it, would be extremely difficult to give because the gentleman went in there knowing what the zone was, operated the business knowing what he was doing, and decided to expand knowing, or has planned to expand, knowing what the law states regarding that zoned area. We want to permit that to happen, we would have to change the zone of the area, which can be done, which can be clearly defined. If we're going to change it, we would probably have to make it commercial. If we do that, I hope everybody else on that road knows that that would permit then commercial development anywhere along that road. We're here to enforce the zoning laws as they are written. We're not here to make the zoning laws, we're here to follow what's in the book, and it's a pretty good book. We have a lot of good ideas, I think, that can be utilized to revise our zoning laws. They are due for revision. They have been revised before. It has just not been carried all the way to the point of having it voted on and put into effect. We've discussed this for years. Committee has been formed. We've discussed it in the past. We offered to participate on it, and we offered to serve as chairman of it if necessary. That's our job. That's what we're here to serve you people for. We want to see this get done. We think if we can get this done, this would alleviate a lot of these problems as opposed to putting us in a very difficult situation. I would like to tonight just say, hey, we haven't heard anything yet. There's been no meeting scheduled. Let's get this thing going because I don't enjoy being put in this situation. I know Gene doesn't enjoy putting this situation. And I'm sure we want to serve you people of the community. Our laws are quite clear, and I think we have to follow them as they're stated. If they need to be changed, let's get together and change them. We're ready to do that. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing in kind of addition to what Kevin said. I think we have to be careful as a town, as a zoning board, planning board, and a town board to start to do these things kind of piecemeal. You know, we've had other people come before us too, and I can think of Dick Metcalf and the Trail of Terror, and that was a year ago. And the zoning board made an interpretation of whether or not this was an allowed use. And yeah, we interpreted and we said the language was clear enough so that we could put it into a recreational use, but it's in an agricultural zone, so there's a lot more permitted there. And I guess I am concerned. I don't think that we need to approach it in a piecemeal matter. It's got to be taken a look at as a whole at this point, because we're going to have more people come before us. I mean, look at Longley Brothers and what happened 6 months ago or 8 months ago with that whole situation. They had to come before us for an interpretation again. That is one of the roles of the zoning board. We're here for interpretation, but in this last year, we've seen at least three interpretations, and I think that's quite a bit. I think that's telling us something, that we need to take a closer look at our zoning ordinance. So I'm with Kevin. I think we need to get going on this.
The only other thing I'd like to mention, since we are having a budget meeting tonight, one thing that I'm pretty proud of, and I think Gene's pretty proud of too, I believe our total legal bill as a planning board this year was a little over $400. And I think that involved one situation regarding a subdivision where it costs you $400 to have 3 or 4 letters written these days by lawyers, unfortunately. But our total legal bill for our board as a whole, unless I'm incorrect, and correct me if I'm wrong, was probably about $440 or so. And I think that's pretty darn good. We act to try to avoid legal problems, to try to avoid legal difficulties, and I think it's true for your case too. We've been pretty successful with that so far, and I think that saved the town money to some extent. So, thank you.
I have a couple more zoning things I just want to bring up.
You're going to give your report now?
Yes, I'll make it quick. Make it quick following that. Since the last town board meeting, the Zoning Board of Appeals has met twice. We met on October 14th, and at that meeting we granted Brian Francis Hall of Rowley's 13-foot front yard their mobile home, or for his mobile home. The board also noted at that time that when the land is transferred from Francis Hall to Brian Hall, and Francis owns all the land in that area, a rear yard variance will not be necessary, as there will be enough land to allow for the 50-foot rear yard setback that he's going to need. The board also noted the mobile home is an allowed use due to its non-conforming status. and this is located on Rowley Road near Diston. Okay, let's see. Last night we met, and we had a public hearing for Mr. David Evans of County Route 176, and we granted two variances to him, a 3-foot 6-inch front yard variance and a 3-foot 6-inch dimensional variance, so that he could construct a 24-foot by 24-foot garage. And I think Kevin kind of covered the Dunmore situation, but I did let both Dave and Claudia know, since Claudia is very interested in this as well, that I would look into the options that are available. Kevin mentioned the use variance, and that would certainly be very difficult for them to get. The Zoning Board of Appeals can perhaps interpret the ordinance. I'm not quite clear on that yet. And also, certainly a zone change. You know, that's a possibility if they petition the town board. So I will be getting back to you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Building inspector?
Last month, we had about 19 building permits issued. 5 were for homes, 2 repair projects as a result of fires, a deck, a chimney, 2 wood stoves, 2 barns, 2 utility buildings, and 1 aircraft hangar. Total fees were $1,158.
Thank you, Ed. Dog control, I don't, Joe Doty's gone.
Joe called me and said that he was on a dog call and he wasn't sure if he'd get back here. This is his month for his report for the month of November. Total number of calls received, 36. Number of dogs adopted, 1. Number of dogs redeemed, 2. Number of dogs euthanized, 0. Total miles traveled, 135. Number of complaints pending, 1. There is a court date set for December 5th, and this one is going to go into the District Attorney's Court for a non-jury trial. Total number of complaints closed, 35. Total number of dogs housed at the pound this month, 5. At this meeting date, there's 4 dogs housed at the pound. Repairs at the pound completed, none. And both Joe and I would certainly like to thank Bob Curfein for paving the area in front of the kennel and the driveway. It makes a tremendous difference and a tremendous getting in and out of there. Repairs needed at the pound, none at this time. There is 1 lost dog. It's a Doberman named Theo. It's in the Hawk Road area. Belongs to a Mr. Edward Graham. His phone number is 598-6671. And if anyone sees a Doberman in that particular area, if they would call Mr. Graham, he'd be greatly appreciative. Joe is called.
Excuse me, if they do not remember the number or don't write it down, they can call the town hall and Byron will give them that information.
If you give it. I certainly give you the report, yes. Also, Joe contacts me at least once a week and we talk about any problems that have come up. He's had 3 dogs, which he's been trying to capture now for quite some time, and he hasn't been able to get near them. People will call him. Now, Joe, of course, does work a full-time job, but he responds to the calls in less than 12 hours, which I have received no complaints about Joe's performance. He has been asked to do some strange things, and one was this dog kept creating a problem, and Joe was asked to sit and wait for the dog to come back. Well, now, I can't expect or even ask a dog control officer to do something like that, and I hope people do understand that this is a part-time position for Joe, but as you can see, with 36 calls received and 35 complaints closed, he's doing more complaint a day, so he's being very busy in 135 miles. Joe wants to take a bit of time to go hunting, and so I'm going to ask our constable, Bill Crumpton, to take over in Joe's place for the next next week or so. We'll be paying Joe $13.65 a day. We do have money currently in the contractual account, and if needed at the end of the year, if we have to transfer some money, we would. But Joe's been performing Herculean task and has a well-deserved week coming here. And I believe that's the report that will be on file with our dog warden, or with our dog warden control beyond our town clerk. Thanks, Mayor. Just remember, if you have any questions about dogs, 598-DOGS or 598-3647, and that's the number that will get you our dog control officer or for adoptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next report is the highway report. I assume, Byron, you have Bob Kerfien's report.
Highway Superintendent's Report, October 1992, 15 days road paving and repairs, 12 days shop maintenance, 5 days in driveways. Payroll for October 1992, $21,482.63. Bills for maintenance and road repair, $57,362.14. Total expenditures for the month of $78,844.77.
Thank you. Recreation Department, is Randy here? Does anybody have Randy's report or know whether he's coming? Well, if he shows up later, we'll squeeze
Randy
him.
was also supposed to bring a letter to us tonight telling us what about that, what he's going to do about salary, because he's going to postpone that. We're getting close.
Any other reports?
Mr. Supervisor, can I call for a point of order?
Yes, sir.
Under communications, number 4, the clerk of the Bristol Hill Church wrote a letter to the town board, and I was wondering why it wasn't read under communications.
I apologize to you. It should have been. Do you have a copy there?
I've got your copy. I got the reply.
Okay. Thank you.
I have your reply, but I don't have the church reply.
Okay. I do not have the copy of the letter, but it's a Ms. Yvonne Bradish, thank you, clerk for the Bristol Hill Church, wrote a letter to me. And my reply is as follows. Dear Ms. Bradish, I apologize for not replying sooner to your request on October 17, 1992 for use of the large activities room in the municipal building on the evening of November 13 by the Bristol Hill Church. However, I was attempting to again find the specific ruling which states that a municipality may not allow the use of its buildings for charitable fundraising purposes. Since, as you have indicated in your letter, the proceeds of the proposed square dance are to, quote, benefit the church's building fund, unquote, I must turn down your request. Very truly yours. And I copied the town board and the county attorney, Bruce Clark, and the town attorney, Dennis Hawthorne, Jr. Moving on, under old business. Is there any old business to come before us?
This come under old business?
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor? Well, in it, it doesn't say what the interpretation was of law that they could not use the municipal buildings. Is it because it's to benefit their...
A municipal building is not allowed, period, to be used for charitable fundraising purposes by outside people.
Well, then can I...
They can use it, but they should not fundraising purposes. Yes, fundraising that becomes the problem.
This building, if somebody was using it, it's supposed to be open to the public.
Yes,
Because it is a public building.
yes.
Saturday morning, there was something going on here, and it's not on the board. I don't know what it was. It wasn't open to the public. And I was just wondering what that was. Saturday morning.
It was a graduation ceremony for people that teach their children in their homes, and I neglected to put it on the board. I had a letter from them,
The
And
public could have come to it.
as far as I know,
That's why I was just wondering, what it was.
that's the third meeting they've had. The tour meetings are all here to train their children and family and so on, and this was a graduation for kids to go to school.
Okay, thank you.
On that same topic, Mr. Supervisor, I do have a couple of questions. You said I was attempting to find the specific ruling. You didn't find it, I take it?
Yes, I did.
You did. Do you have it? Do you have it here?
No, I don't. It's in my office.
Could you get a copy of it for us? Okay, because the resolution you made earlier this year said that the municipality can continue to be made available to all nonprofit organizations. You're stating here that it can't be for fundraising purposes, but usually nonprofit organizations, that's what they do. That's what their function usually is. In reference to that, earlier this year, Byron gave permission to some people that have a Hallmark Collectibles in here. They were charging $1 admission and then selling collectibles. To me, that's a profit-making venture, and I don't know why that got by.
Because I didn't know it was a profit-making venture. They asked me to get together to form a club. They didn't tell me that there was any, and they were called immediately when it was found out. They have not been back.
I suggest in the future you give them a copy of the resolution spelling out what purposes this can be used for. But I personally...
The chairman didn't even know that that was going to happen. The woman that I made them...
That's why you have to spell it out to them in advance. One comment I'd like to make, it's interesting that we in this town hall, but the Fulton Municipal Building was available to the Bristol Hill Church for the same purpose. I don't understand the difference between municipalities. If there's a law in the books, it should be applicable to all municipalities, I would think. And I hope that's not the case, because I don't have a problem with it. I think people in this town should be able to use it for any function they want, as long as it's open to the public and it's not a profit-making venture use of the building.
When I read that earlier, what the differentiation is if we had a room in the town hall that was never used for town business, then we could let people use it for fundraising activities. But since every room in this building is used for town activities, then we don't have a separate room set aside. Some people have large enough facilities, they have separate rooms that they never have to use for the town.
I think home rule law, we could amend that ourselves if we wanted to. And I might suggest that in the future.
Any other old business? Now I will entertain public comment on the resolutions.
I'm sorry, Supervisor, I was thinking of what I just said to you, and I do have a few things under old business myself. First of all, I'd like to ask the progress with the highway superintendent on the park. Does anyone know? He's not here tonight. I can't believe he's not here tonight. We got 2/3 of our budget is his budget, and he's not even here to answer questions. I'm really disappointed in him for not being here. But does anybody know what his plans are, his progress on the park? We gave him that authority a month ago.
I asked him about that 2 nights ago, and it is so wet over there, he feels that he cannot get any equipment on those grounds, and I concur with his statement. It is unbelievably wet. It's wet. It's just too bad he just can't get in there. I believe that when it dries up to the point where he can get his heavy equipment in there, that he will proceed as we planned.
Okay, one other item of old business, and I know some people aren't going to want to hear this, but I've been getting questioned about it for the last month, and I see there's a lot of firemen here tonight, and I'm glad you're here because I'd like to have a few words that you may want to listen to. I have a statement on this blacktop issue that came up last month that I want to read to everybody and maybe clear the air a little bit here. The issue concerning the possible misuse of taxpayers' funds in paving the parking lots of the Volney Fire Corporation that was raised by me at the October Town Board meeting has met with misunderstanding of the issue by many citizens and dereliction of duty by this town board. When I raised the issue, I in no way implicated the fire corporation itself in any of this, and clearly pointed the finger at the time at Highway Superintendent Bob Kerpine and possibly Legislator Bill Buck. After presenting the facts as I knew them, I asked the town board to schedule a meeting and look into the matter. The week following that last town board meeting, I was told by Supervisor McFarland that there will be no investigation and that it was a dead issue. Well, Section 51, Sub 3 and 4 under General Powers of the Town Board says, 3, requiring reports from the supervisor concerning the conduct of official business of the town and the performance of town officers and employees of their functions, powers, and duties. 4, making of studies and investigations as it deems to be in the best interest of the town and in connection therewith, to obtain and provide for compensation for professional and technical advice, subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, and require the production of books, papers, and other evidence deemed necessary or material for any such investigation. It's obvious that this is the town board's duty to look into the allegations, and with actions led purely by conscience and not by political ambitions, as some have suggested, I proceeded with my own investigation. I started by sending letters to Mr. Kirky and Mr. Buck, giving them an opportunity to explain their involvement. Neither one of them has responded to me. Mr. Buck was quoted as saying in the press he was pleased with the suggestion to provide asphalt because it was a way of helping the volunteer firefighters. The town would end up paying for this service anyhow, he said. Every year we negotiate a contract with the fire corporation to provide fire protection for this town. A certain amount of money is budgeted to cover their expenses, and taxes are levied accordingly, which is covered under Section 184, Sub 5 of town law. The New York State Constitution, Article 8, concerning local finances, specifically states, a gift or loan of property or credit or local subdivisions prohibited, exceptions for enumerated purposes, which means things that can be accounted for. Section 1, no county, city, town, village, or school district shall give or loan any money or property to or in aid of any individual or private corporation. The county and the town did this. These in-kind services may have good intentions, but they leave the door open to abuse, and it is consequently the taxpayer's loss. We have a business right here in town, Northern, who I'm sure is feeling the economic crunch and employs people in this town who have to unfairly compete with government for a service that they provide. Maybe Mr. Buck can explain why the county cut from their budget funding for EMT, emergency medical training, recently, forcing the volunteers to pay for such training out of their own pockets. I hope public safety wasn't sacrificed for blacktop. I want to again make clear that I do not hold the fire corporation responsible, and I support them 100% in their efforts. It was my presence on this board 2 years ago that influenced the largest increase in their budget ever, $40,000, and that the rumors being spread about my no longer being a friend of the firemen are perpetrated by a handful of political opportunists who want to divert attention from the real issue. Don't be fooled by the smoke screen, and I once again ask this board to look into the matter. It's our duty.
Is there any other old business to come before us? We will now hear public comment on resolutions, and please, resolutions only. Yes?
Thank you. This deputy dog control officer, did I understand you say that his salary, is it budgeted with the other one?
Yes.
Are they dividing up their salary?
Yes.
In Resolution 92-166, this bond anticipation resolution,
Yes.
could you explain that to us?
Yes. When you borrow a large sum of money, you bond for it. In other words, you get the money, let's say it's $100,000. I think in this case it was what, Byron, 80 for the truck?
This is almost 77.
77. In this case, it was 77,000. It was to buy a truck. It was a large expenditure. You do not have in your budget $77,000. So you go out and get a bond. Now, that bond has to be repaid on an annual basis. So what you have to do is renew it every year. And the interest rate will change according to current interest conditions. Right now, it's very, very low. I think this bond is 3.67%. It has to be renewed on an annual basis. And each year you make a payment, but each year you also have to renew it. And that's what we're doing, is renewing the bond for that truck that we bought several years ago. There's only about 2 or 3 payments left.
And do you have another bond for the assessor?
Yes. Yes.
So we've got 2 bonds?
3.
3?
How many, Byron?
It's all three plus the building.
Plus this building?
Mm-hmm.
Plus this building. This building is paid off
This is paid off in '97. You got a bond note down on the Seneca Hill District. It'll be paid off this year. There's 2 more years, I believe, on the salt shed, and then whatever number of years they bonded for the assessment services.
I still don't understand the anticipation part. Are you anticipating
What it
borrowing
means
more
is
money?
that the bond is based upon the fact that you are anticipating receiving the money. You know that you are going to, there's money budgeted, you know you're going to get taxes. You're anticipating the taxes coming in, is what it means.
You've already borrowed the money.
Yes.
Right. So you're not planning on borrowing any more money that way?
No. Any other questions? Yes.
In reference to the bonds, is there a way of, as you said, the interest rates right now are very favorable, and, there's anticipation that over the next coming years they could go up. Is there any way of converting that debt to a longer term? Do you have to renew the bond every year? There's no way of locking into this rate, let's say, for the remainder of the loan?
They won't do it. It's locked in.
Thank you.
For 1 year, it's locked in. Any other questions, comment on the resolution? I'll move now to resolution number 161. And I'll move that the contract with the Volney Volunteer Fire Corporation for fire and rescue operations for 1993 be adopted per the preliminary budget in the amount of $180,000. I'll move it, and it's been seconded. Discussion. Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner. Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next one, resolution number 162. And I will move it that the general budget for the town of Volney for 1993 as presented in the preliminary budget be adopted in the total amount, including the general fund, highway fund, fire and water districts of $1,454,860.
Second for discussion. First of all, I have a few questions. Jim, there was a letter received from the Division of Youth this past summer concerning our share of the state aid that we're supposed to be getting. And it looks that we weren't going to be getting all of it. Well, can you explain that?
We're going to be getting $2,090, I believe.
Okay, it was supposed to have been 3105. That's what we put in for the year
Well, but
before.
you weren't going to get 3105 because that amount was not allocated by the county. The funds, there's a certain dollar amount that is divvied up among the various different townships within the county. And our share or portion for X number of years has been $3,105.
Right.
That amount has been decreasing as the state has withdrawn some of their commitment to youth programs and so forth because of budget constraints. That dollar amount has been reduced. Consequently, we requested $3,105, but the funds available for us were 2,000 something, whatever the figure is there. So we have not.
1,545 is the 1,545 is the figure here from the controller's office.
I can't respond because I don't know. I don't know the document you're referring to, Howard.
It was a report on pre-audit of state aid claims, and we received it at the town hall back in August.
And that was your last. Now, Dave clarified for me there were two. One you did. The other one I did and took into Oswego and got the full amount. There were some, and I can't give you specifics because I can't remember what they were, but there were certain categories that they said were not eligible for reimbursement under the guidelines. When I originally submitted the application for the funds for the for the year 1991, that we were always a year behind. I made a modification of budget, and I believe that we should have received a check by now for the figure of about 2,000 something, Byron, and I don't know if the check's come in yet. It was a little over $2,000 that we were supposed to get.
So what you're saying is the 3105 that we normally get, even though we applied for it, they told us it was coming, they whittled it down after the fact.
We won't get the $3,105, no.
But now you're also telling me that it was based on what we did, that we didn't do certain things to
No,
qualify.
because what we did is we had adequate expenditures to cover.
10,000.
Well, we had plenty of bills and legitimate expenses once I transferred from Category A to Category B. We had plenty of dollars. Our problem was that the state had cut back the funding, so our share, rather than $3,105, was 2,000 something, and I can't remember the exact figure because I don't have it here.
$2,090, I think.
It was a little over 2,000, I know.
Based on the cutback. and not
It's
what we
based on the
did to
cutback.
qualify.
No, we in fact, went through and I spent one full day Phil Church at Oswego, and we went through them. He sent the materials back to me. I went through, I revised, and I went back to Oswego and worked it through. We got all that we were eligible for, all of the dollars that were there.
Okay, my next question, dog control, as you know, I was doing that for the past 2 years before you reassumed the position,
Right.
Jim. I well understand the frustration in that position, and that the costs never seem to be enough to do the job right. I'm not so much against having a deputy, but I just wonder why I took so much heat from you and other people back in 2 years I had it, when I was just trying to get a dog kennel built so we'd have something to work with, and I kept the budget tight on everything else. We didn't even raise taxes to do that. We just borrowed from some of the fat in the highway department fund. But in any case, Diane, who is no longer with us, she never got all these luxuries that we're giving to Joe, and I just don't understand why the complete turnaround now. We're making this position what it should be, which is good, but if you're going to continue with it, and I assume it's going to get passed tonight, I might suggest that in the future here, next year, we make this a more self-sufficient operation and raise dog feed licenses to cover so that all the people in the town aren't paying for dog problems that they don't create.
Totally agreed, and was talking with Dave, and I looked at the article from Mexico and what they're doing out there, and I believe that we will be raising those particular fees. I would say that, of course, some of the heat that, in quotes, that I gave you on dog kennel, I still am not 100% sure that our best expenditure of funds was to have the kennel and to do it differently. I'm not as impressed with the kennel. However, now that I have it to work with, and Joe is doing it, and I have to be in charge of and working with the maintenance of that kennel, then I have to expend the dollars to do that. I have to expend dollars, as you well know, to heat and for light, and for certain repairs. I put a beef trough. We've done various things that we've had to expend dollars for. We're going to have to expend dollars for the paint, the special paint to paint the interior. That I budgeted in because of the ceiling. There are certain things in those lines that we do have to spend money for. What we have actually done, or what I am saying that we would do, is to have a dog control officer and a deputy control officer who would act as backups. But in actuality, one will probably be pretty much of a kennel person and simply keep the kennel and act as backup for the other. And they will work in that way. Also, our current dog control officer, I have not heard anyone to refute this. If Anthony,
Jim, we're on the budget right now, and we can get into the dog control officer later.
Good enough.
A couple more quick things. Mr. Supervisor, you mentioned that you reinstated the historian's position. I'll remind you that we never did away with it. We just cut the salary out of it. It's always been there. And, I believe Byron's been doing that. Also, let's see, you mentioned that the data collection, Claudia, isn't going to show up until the 94 tax roll? I thought the timetable was set for May of 93.
Okay, what it is that the roll has to be set by March 1st of the year for the following year. So March 1st of '93, they will set the roll for the next year.
Okay, yeah, they don't start.
So it'll
paying tax
start
on it
with
till
it will start with the school tax. The required opportunity for the public to question their assessments will take that process past the March 1st deadline. So we will not be using the figures from assessment services to set the roll because the process will not be completed until after the deadline.
Okay, and my last question, Jim, I've mentioned this to you before, and I just want to explain to everyone where I arrived at. The bookkeeper, 7130. I told you, and I mentioned it last year at the budget meeting, we did do an evaluation of the people in the different positions around different towns in the county, and that position in most communities was like $2,000, $3,000 tops in most communities. A few that are even higher than what we're paying. I don't know why, but in any case, I mentioned it because Supervisor Kitts at the time told me that our bookkeeper was only in here 2 days a month, and that she was able to do it all in that time period. I also checked with a certified public accountant about contracting the job to him, and he told me about $3,000 a year he could take care of the books. So that's why we lowered the salary last year. We cut it in half, and now you reinstated that salary this year, and you want to do it again next year. I'd just like your justification for that, if I could.
I would ask the supervisor to look at it.
It's your wife, and you voted on your salary.
Mr. Rhodes? I was not on the board when that appointment was made.
No, but you're on the board, you voted her salary on this year.
The salary is the same as it has been in the last several years. To answer your question, Howard, it is the same.
That doesn't
No
justify
increase.
anything, though, Mr. Supervisor.
Well, you had raised that question during all our budget discussion.
I did, I raised it with Jim.
Well, you didn't raise it with the general board.
We also cut the historian's pay from $2,500, which was more than most all the historians combined in the county were getting before because it was out of line. So we can take care of things like that if we choose to do so. That's all I have.
Any other discussion? Byron, will you hold the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Are you
voting on the budget? Point of information. Are you voting on the budget right now?
You're on board, Maria.
I have point of information, that is a legal response.
It's not. Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
Absolutely not.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No, for the simple reason I have to say, after listening to the taxpayers out here, we should go back and maybe discuss that.
That's right.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye.
The next resolution, resolution number 92-163. I'll move that, and I'll fill in the blank, the name of the individual is Michael F. Parsnow, be appointed to the Assessment Review Board to fill a vacancy that will expire on September 30, 1994. Mrs. Walski filled that position, and she moved out of the town. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next resolution, number 164. Whereas the duties of the dog control officer requires his or her services 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and whereas temporary substitutes, if available, are requesting compensation for their services, therefore move that the position of deputy dog control officer be established in order to share the duties and responsibilities of the dog control officer. I'll move it.
I'll second it for discussion. Is there a salary attached to this?
The salary is, as per the budget, $5,500. It will probably be shared by them equally.
Or it could be proportional.
Or proportional according to
the total salary for both.
So it's only an increase of about, what, $500 more than what it was before?
$49.84 to $5,500, so it'd be $516.
further discussion? Byron?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
To your surprise, probably, aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor.
Aye. The next, number 165, move that the town clerk be authorized to advertise to fill positions for appointments for the year of 1993. All applications to be received in the office of the town clerk no later than December 8, 1992, at close of regular office hours. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next, whether I had them printed or whether I didn't have them printed, I still have to read it for legal reasons. Bear with me. The first is bond resolution of today, authorizing the issuance and sale of serial bonds on the Volney for the acquisition of a truck, the amount of $45,000. Be it resolved this 12th day of November 1992 by the Town Board of the Town of Volney, Oswego County, New York as follows. Section 1, the purpose for which the obligations authorized by this resolution are to be issued is the purchase of a truck for the use of the Town of Volney. Section 2, the plan for financing the total cost of such purpose consists in the issuance of general obligation serial bonds of the said Town of Volney in the principal amount of $45,000, which bonds and such amounts are hereby authorized. Section 3, general obligation serial bonds of the said town in the principal amount of $45,000 are authorized to be issued for the purpose aforesaid pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law of the state of New York. Payment obligation shall commence on November 13, 1992 and continue until November 13, 1993. The remaining period of probable usefulness of such object or purpose is 3 years pursuant to Section 11, Subdivision 8, Subparagraph 29 of the local finance law. Section 4, the bonds herein authorized shall be of such terms, form, and content as the supervisor of the town of Volney shall prescribe, consistent, however, with the terms of this resolution and the provisions of the local finance law. Section 5, when said bonds shall have been duly sold, the same shall be delivered by the supervisor of the town of Volney to the purchaser upon payment by the purchaser of the purchase price, including accrued interest. Section 6, the full faith and credit of the said town of Volney are hereby irrevocably pledged to the payment of the principal of said bonds and interest thereon when due. Section 7, there has been provided from current funds prior to the issuance of bonds or bond anticipation notes a sum sufficient to pay at least 5% of the entire estimated cost of such object or purpose in accordance with Section 107 of the local finance law. Section 8, this resolution is intended as a renewal of a bond resolution of the town board, town of Volney, initially dated April 26, 1990, which authorized the issuance of serial bonds in the total amount of $77,000 with a 1-year maturity. Section 9, this resolution shall take effect November 13, 1992. And I move it, and do I hear a second? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilwoman Rose.
Councilman Rose, aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next one is resolution number 167. I will also read this one. Bond anticipation note resolution for issuance and sale of notes of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, in anticipation of the sale of $45,000 serial bonds for the acquisition of a truck. Whereas the town board of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, has heretofore and on the 12th day of November 1992 duly adopted a resolution authorizing the issuance of certain serial bonds in the amount of $45,000 for the purpose of defraying the cost of the acquisition of a truck for the use of the town of Volney, said resolution to become effective November 13, 1992. And whereas there are no bond anticipation notes outstanding which have been previously issued in anticipation of sale of the aforesaid bonds, and whereas it has been determined that the best interests of the town of Volney will be served if bond anticipation notes be issued in anticipation of the sale of the aforesaid bonds, now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, as follows. 1, that in anticipation of the sale of serial bonds authorized to be issued in the aggregate principal amount of $45,000, Said sale having been authorized to be issued by a bond resolution of this town board adopted November 12, 1992, entitled Bond Resolution of November 12, 1992, authorizing the issuance and sale of serial bonds to the town of Volney with the acquisition of a truck in the amount of $45,000. There are hereby authorized to be issued and sold bond anticipation notes of the town in the aggregate principal amount of not exceeding $45,000 for the purpose of raising funds for the cost of the acquisition of a truck for said town. Such bond anticipation notes hereby authorized shall be renewal notes of bond anticipation notes previously authorized for the same purpose with the term expiring November 13, 1992. 2, that the supervisor of the town is hereby authorized to sell at a private sale the renewal bond anticipation notes herein authorized to be issued at the prevailing interest rate. Such notes may be sold and delivered at one time or from time to time, and if sold at different times, they shall be dated as of the respective dates of issue. Each of said notes shall mature not later than 1 year from the date of issue of the first note sold and delivered pursuant to the provisions of this resolution, subject to such right of redemption as may be provided therein, and such notes may be renewed from time to time as provided by the local finance law. The denomination and all other terms, details, and contents of said notes, including provision for redemption, shall be determined by the supervisor of the town. 3, that said bond anticipation notes shall be signed by the supervisor and shall have the seal of the town affixed thereto and attested by the town clerk. That the full faith and credit of said town be, and that same hereby are irrevocably pledged the punctual payment of the principal of and interest on said notes as they same become due and payable. 5, that said bond anticipation notes are not issued in anticipation of bonds for an accessible improvement. 6, that this resolution shall take effect November 13, 1992. Byron, I move this. Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the town council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner. Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. That concludes the resolutions. Is there other new business? Any other new business? Right. Any petitions?
You got a hand up there.
I would like to know, if, oh,
I do have a few things, Mr. President, if I could.
Under new business?
Under new business. Planning and zoning, they work for the whole year, and some of them might submit vouchers midway through the year, and some submit them at the end. Have they been paid yet for this year, or are they still being waiting to get paid?
They are waiting to get paid.
Is there any reason why they can't get it before Christmas?
They will have it before Christmas.
I don't mean the 24th, I mean like a few weeks so they can shop on it maybe?
They will be paid. They will be paid this November.
Okay.
Point of information on that.
Yes.
Can we pay for the full 12 months a month in advance? That's the only concern I have. Can we pay them for 11 months?
We got people a few years ago that didn't only come to 2 meetings a year, and we paid them for the full year. I mean, I'm not gonna worry about the last month of the year if they
Well,
can't
wait
make
a
it.
minute, because I think that there was a real concern that when people were paid on the 15th of the month, I believe that the auditor said that when the town board was being paid the 15th of the month a year or so ago, I believe the auditor said that that was not legal, that you cannot pay people for services that they haven't rendered or until the time is up where those services were to have been completed. That's my only question. I don't have any problem with paying them, but I do remember that there was a concern by the auditor that you could not pay, this would be 1 month's salary in advance, and that's my only question and concern. I do not have a problem paying them. I would gladly do it, but I remember that concern.
We are going to pay them for the year in November, approximately 2 weeks.
Good enough.
On that section 284 that I mentioned last month too, I noticed you put in my box a copy of the section 284 that I did sign earlier this year. And I said at the time that I didn't remember signing anything like that. I did sign something like that, but the contract that I signed was blank. Supervisor Kitts, now that I recall signing it and saw that, he told us it was one of those formalities, we just sign it and pass it on, like a number of other things that we did, and that's what I did. And I apologize for doing that. I should have checked into it further, but I was told by the highway superintendent at that time that we had no say in the roads that he paved, and indeed we do. Section 284 gives us that right, and that will happen this coming year. So I just want everybody to know that I was wrong on one part, but I was right on the other.
Any other new business? Petitions? Does anybody have a petition to bring forward? Yes, please.
I'm Roger Dunsmore, the topic of conversation tonight. We own in our archery shop. We put in for a building permit to expand our business and build a indoor archery range to try to make our business go a little better. I plan on retiring the first of the year if everything works right. That's what I'd like to do. We're looking for help from you. I went to the planning board, and I went to the variance, and they more or less kind of directed me this way.
Do you have a petition to bring forward?
Yeah. This is all the neighbors from the Raleigh Road to the Howard Road on both sides.
I've never, since I've been in office, I'm not even sure what I do with petitions or how do I react to them. This is a list of signatures, and I assume people who have no problem with you're doing what you're doing. But I think in order for us to do some kind of action for you, Mr. Dunsmore, you have to present us with something that we can act on, a request to do something. And that is, if without having such a request, I'm not sure how we can proceed as a town board. Are you following me?
We're requesting.
Dave?
Yes.
What is the petition for? Is it for a zone change, or is it just that the neighbors?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh, I see.
It is simply a list, it says
variance
a
or-
variance or, all right,
convenience.
a variance or business convenience.
If they understand that they're looking for a zone change to a business zone, which is, C?
Yes.
B? B1, then that would be a petition for a zone change. And, that's fine. We can begin working in that respect.
All we want is whatever we need. You know, I don't care
No, we're here for advice.
Right.
Right, how does your neighbors feel about if you came in for a zone change?
We had a few here last night.
We had some here last night, but they have no problem.
They have no problem?
Right. We've been, you know, to all the neighbors and
Yeah, that is all the neighbors on both sides of the road from the Raleigh Road to the Howard
Variance
Road.
cannot be granted, you get into a zone change, we gotta have a, public hearing.
Right.
I think we should look into this with a lawyer and see what our options are.
I believe we have to give, we're obligated to give them a public hearing, then the decisions are made after that.
No. Okay, what you do is you accept the petition, and it's for a zone change, you would submit it to the planning board. The planning board would have to then give you their recommendations, and then, go ahead.
It says variance or.
Well, the thing is, with a use variance, we went over this with the Dunsmores last night. They can go ahead and they can appeal for a use variance if they would like to do that. But the first test is going to be a very difficult test for them to meet. It says, are we depriving them of all economic use of that land? And there's so many other things that are permitted in an R1 zone that they can do that I don't see that as a feasible solution.
Did you get a copy of the letter from their?
Yes, I have a copy of the letter.
We went through the zoning book, checked out
Yes.
the section.
Yeah, so, either the zoning board makes some kind of interpretation, which I don't know how feasible that is, given our zoning ordinance, or we consider a zone change.
And how did your neighbors feel last night about if they went for a business convenience of a zone
The
change?
people that were there were very much in support, and what I suggested to Mr. and Mrs. Dunsmore is that they kind of canvass the area, decide, that's a pretty large district right there. Do they want the whole thing changed? Who wants it changed?
Or one side of the road?
Right.
I mean, you can go one side of the road, am I right?
Sure, I mean, if it's to the benefit of the town, if the town feels it's beneficial, then you can rezone 7 acres if you want.
What we don't want to do is we don't want to take one person's piece of property and rezone that. That's not what you want to do. Most of the other side of the road is the airport anyway in that area, so it's owned by the county, I believe. But The point we're trying to say is it's very difficult on a case-by-case basis to continually bend the laws and twist the laws, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing. And the course of action for them to follow, really, to do what they want to do, I think about the only feasible course of action would be to go for a zone change. And that area is a growing area, and if the residents of that area feel that that's something they're interested in, we would be very happy to proceed on that course of action.
What I'd like to suggest we do is take this under advisement and sit down and review it with all parties and see what is best for us all. All right, Gene? Dunsmore? Okay.
Would we get into like a special meeting so we can move this thing on as soon as possible? If the attorney gives us the right direction?
I'd like to sit down basically with Gene and Kevin and Claudia, I know has an interest in this situation personally, and see what we can work out, and do it as expeditiously as possible.
The whole board.
We can have the whole board on it too.
Now, the biggest property owner is Norm Hayden. How do they feel about it?
He was here.
Was he? For B1 if need be.
Let me do a little preliminary research on this, and if necessary, I'll call for a special board meeting. All right? All right? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Still I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with petitions. Public comment. Your chance. Dan?
I was asked to appear here tonight on behalf of the fire department to, obviously in reference to the blacktop issue. When we started out with it, no wrongdoing intended. As far as we're concerned, there still was no wrongdoing done. It greatly distresses the fire department that two individuals that were asked to help the fire department and attempted to help the fire department are now being pursued for alleged wrongdoing and everything else. So to put an end to that situation, I have two checks here. It was calculated out that 60 tons of blacktop were delivered to the fire department parking lot at a county fee of $23 a ton, which is the same that everybody else gets charged. Comes out to $1,380. I asked Mr. Kerfine to work up a bill for the labor for the time that they spent putting the blacktop down. That bill came out to $212.40. I'd like to present those checks to the board. And as there's not supposed to be any so-called in-services of kind or trade of services or whatever you want to call it, I also have a bill from the fire department to the town for storage of county equipment on private property, and also use of water drawn from the fire department's private well for $212.50. I'd like to read a personal statement, if I might. And this, again, I say is personal. It's not as a representative of the fire department. For the last 19 years, I've been a member of the Volney Volunteer Fire Corporation. During these years of membership, I have been involved in many different improvement and new equipment projects. In an effort to save money for the taxpayers in the town of Volney, the members of this town's volunteer fire department have always sought the most economical ways and means to purchase trucks, equipment, or to fund building and property improvement projects. One example that stands out in my mind is when we needed a tanker to supplement our water capacity for areas like Seneca Hill. After much searching and pricing, we found that we would be spending nearly $60,000. Deciding that this was too much to spend at the particular time, the membership then took a different route. The membership then took an older pumper that was no longer in service and stripped the truck to the bare frame. We then built from the frame up a tanker that is still in service today. Whenever possible, we used donated parts. We also did all the labor ourselves. The special welding that had to be done was performed by a welder located within the township, and he also donated his time. The total cost of this truck, when finished, was slightly under $5,000. This was a total savings to the taxpayers of almost $55,000. The second project that stands out in my mind is our Station 2 on the March Road. This station was built by the members of the fire department. This also saved the taxpayers a large amount of money. And please note, the only reason I'm pointing this out is because Councilman Rose has accused the fire department of ripping off the taxpayers in the town of Volney by having the county trade blacktop for fire rescue services performed on county property. The town of Volney has been using our Station 2 on March Road since the mid-1970s for a polling place. As the number of voters has grown, parking at this station has become difficult at best, as room must be left for emergency vehicles to exit the station. This, combined with the fact that voters were being forced to walk through mud holes or stumble on stones, prompted us to look into having the fire station's parking lot paved. As it had always been done in the past, I looked for the most economical way to accomplish this project. Working with the knowledge of past services that we had done for the county, some of which include providing main fire and rescue coverage for the yearly air show, responding to 4 plane mishaps in the last year, and I have to change that to 5 because we went to one a couple weeks ago, fighting a fire at the Bristol Hill landfill, responding to rescue calls at the landfill, back flushing dry hydrants at the county airport, and future supervision of a newly purchased air crash rescue truck, and fire training for airport personnel. These details, along with the fact that the county does not pay any taxes to the town, prompted me to approach county officials to see what type of deal could be worked out. It should be pointed out that as the county does not pay taxes to the town of Volney, the cost of performing the above services are paid and supported solely by the taxpayers in the town of Volney. It was with this in mind that the county officials agreed to trade the fire department the needed blacktop in exchange for past services provided. I then talked to Mr. Curfew to see if the town's highway crew would be able to put this blacktop down when they were paving the March Road. Mr. Curfew felt that this could be done in the early morning hours when they would be waiting for main roads to dry so they could be paved. In return, the fire department agreed to let Mr. Curfew store the town's highway equipment on fire department's property during off hours, thereby saving the town money as the paving equipment would not have to be taken back and forth to the highway garage. The fire department also agreed to let the town's highway department draw whatever water was needed for his road equipment from their own private well. Shortly after the paving project began, I received a call from county officials that Mr. Rose was having a tantrum over the paving that was being done at our Station 2. As Councilman Rose did not have the courtesy to contact anyone within the fire department to find out what was going on, I contacted Mr. Rose myself. Councilman Rose started out by complaining that the town's highway department should not have been paving fire station's parking lot when they had not even so much as swept his road yet. He then went on and accused the highway department of putting down blacktop at the Moose Club, stating he had received an anonymous phone call reporting this. If he'd taken the time to check this out, he would have seen that what was at the Moose Club was in no possible way the type of blacktop that the town was putting down. All I can say is that Councilman Rose must hold the world's record for anonymous phone calls. It was also at this point that it became blatantly obvious that Councilman Rose was on another one of his yearly witch hunts. Having worked for the town for 3.5 years, I heard Councilman Rose on several different occasions express his desire to put both Mr. Curfew and Mr. Buck in their places and hang them out to dry. Mr. Supervisor, at the October Town Board meeting, Councilman Rose asked for an official investigation to be conducted. I would also ask at this time for an investigation to be done. I would ask that you consider the following points if this investigation is done. Consider the fact that Councilman Rose has used his position to harass many town employees, including zoning board members,
certain planning board members, tax assessors, the town clerk, the town bookkeeper, tax collector, and the town judges. Councilman Rose has used his position to harass neighbors, and I'm referring here to a letter that Councilman Rose sent to a neighbor about target shooting. This letter was sent on town stationery and signed by Councilman Rose and contained a completely bogus law meant to stop his neighbor from doing any target shooting at all. Councilman Rose stated that $20,000 to $30,000 worth of blacktop had put into the fire station's parking lot. In fact, only $1,380 of blacktop was used. This was an obvious attempt to blow this deal way out of proportion. Councilman Rose never bothered to contact the fire department or the town board supervisor to find out if there was a deal worked out. His only interest was in being able to carry on his personal vendetta against Mr. Kerping and Mr. Buck. Councilman Rose's manner in bringing this up was nothing more than an ego inflator for himself, as he made many special attempts to contact all of the newspapers to inform them of this. And again, I point out that he made no attempt whatsoever to contact anyone in the fire department. Councilman Rose has also constantly gone around secretly taping conversations with individuals with a hidden tape recorder in his pocket. Councilman Rose tried to make a big issue out of a law that states the town board must approve any work that is done on town highways, and says that he had never signed a document to that effect, yet the records show that he has, and he's corrected that. As you can see, however, I, along with many others, feel that the real investigation needs to be made of Councilman Rose and not of the fire department's blacktop arrangements. And one other final note that I'd like to make, at last October's meeting, Pastor Hinman talked about the evil of taking trade-offs and so forth, and said that it should never be done. But it should be kept in mind that on August 10th, in 1986, his church received a trade-off of county property of nearly 1.45 acres, free of charge, along with the landscaping. The total value of this deal was $7,500.
What did we give them?
All of this was for a church that services a small part of the townspeople. The fire department's deal was only for $1,592.40 for an organization that serves and protects every single person in the township. Please understand that I have no objections to the churches receiving what they received, but I don't feel that the church's pastor should be condemning the fire department for trying to work out a deal that would save the town's taxpayers a large sum of money. And one other fact that was stated earlier, the county did not drop the EMT funding. The state dropped the EMT funding. The county admittedly should pick it up what the state dropped, but it was the state that dropped the EMT funding, not the county.
First of all, it's no secret who the political opportunist is I was referring to. I'll just take these one at a time. You're correct, it was the state, Dan, but the county didn't help you out, did they? But they helped you out with the blacktop. The church getting a trade-off, I mean, yeah, they got a landfill in their backyard, and it wasn't a trade-off that was done on the slide. It was done up front. Everyone knew about it. They made a motion to do it for them. It was different. Contacting the newspapers, I certainly did. I didn't tell them anything about what it was going to be except that it had to do with the blacktop situation. That was it. You accused me of spilling the beans on the other issue of the bingo money, which I did not do. I had the parking lot over there priced out by a private contractor. Certainly it's going to get done cheaper by the town equipment and the county blacktop and so on. They estimated the Station 2 at $16,000 to do that parking lot. You know, there was two of them done. The one over here was done also earlier this year. But you're missing the point, first of all. The Constitution says what they did was illegal. As I said before, I'm not blaming the fire department. I do not expect you to pay any money. As a matter of fact, the money you're paying us is the taxpayers' money, isn't that right? Yeah, so what's the difference? Keep it. I mean, it's just shoveling back and forth. It makes no sense. No, what the difference is accountability. And when politicians can't account for things, it's wrong, and you know it. So don't try to deceive people here into thinking I'm a bad guy, because it's wrong, and it shouldn't happen, and it won't happen again if I find out about it. Also,
the taxpayers were getting ripped off.
when did I say that? I never said that. Tell me when I said that.
at the last meeting. I did not say that at the last meeting. And if I did, I wasn't referring to the firemen, I was referring to the political, people that did this, that had the authority to authorize it.
Well,
Okay.
I don't want back and forth on.
Okay, no more back and forth. Where's the money coming from? Throwing a tantrum. I didn't throw a tantrum. If Mr. Morey told you that, he was just inflating things like you're doing. The Moose Club, I didn't accuse anybody. I simply asked Bob Kirping if it was a fact. He told me no, end of issue. I didn't pursue it any further. So the key word here is enumerated. That means accounting for what is done. And politicians have to do that. That is the law. And it wasn't done, so I am going to pursue this with the politicians that violated the trust of this community and did this. I have nothing against the fire department, and you know that. So please stop spreading the rumors. Thank you.
My name is Alan Kestner. I was not going to talk about the blacktop because I thought there were some more important issues there. But I would like to point out to Mr. Russo that the good people of Volney just gave him $180,000 for the next year. I would like to point that out. He talked about the county can't do this and the county can't do that. But we just gave him an awful lot of money, and coming up here and giving us a check is very nice. I get back to why the budget was updated to include the paving and the thing. I don't want to go into that anymore. I think Howard Rose is right. I think that what was done was underhanded, it was sneaky, I don't care if it was trade, whatever. It was not done properly, and that's the important point. People, elected officials, who use their position for their own personal gain, I have no use for them. The budget. You can slice it, you can dice it, you can do whatever you want with it. But the bottom line is that my taxes are going up 59.3%. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. The people of Volney have got to understand that we are giving you a blank check. We sign a check with our name on it against our account, and you fill in the amount. Whether you fill in a big amount or a little amount has a bearing on our well-being. And 59.3% increase is not a small amount. We have got to look at the fiscal accountability of the people that we elect for this town board. We have got to do that. I, for one, am going to remember come election day, 59.
I comment on what Mr. Russo said, but I don't think it's worth commenting. I would like to try to express to the board, really, concerning the use of this hall. I felt that the whole issue was all over at the beginning of 1992, when the board made a resolution stating that everybody could use this room but churches. And I talked to Mr. McFarland privately and, expressed my concern, and I felt that it was all taken care of, that certain people could not be excluded, and especially the churches. And since many of the members of the Bristol Hill Church are taxpayers in this town, especially you don't want to exclude them. But there are many issues. As I told Mr. McFarland, there's a very fine line here that you should consider, and that is if some people can't use it for charitable fundraising purposes, then why are other people using it? And I must bring to your attention of, for example, the Recreation Committee. They use this hall. And I wonder if sometimes the senior citizens have 50-50 raffle drawings. Can people use this? The scouts or anything can they use this? What if somebody in this community comes down with cancer and somebody wants to have a fundraising? You mean that we cannot use this hall to help other people? Now the church and the square dancing. We have been using the fire hall, which we greatly appreciate. But many times there are conflicts. They raise money through having wedding receptions, and it's quite a chore, taking down the tables and putting the tables up. And I'm sure the firemen can testify that it's difficult. It's difficult for the church, and it's difficult for them. Truthfully, we only make about $40. We ask for a donation. We do not charge. We ask for a donation of $2 per person. And most of these people are people here. Senior citizens, middle-aged people who like to have a good, fun time, clean, fun time. And they're being denied this. Our big expense is $150 for a band. I mean, you take $2 per person and subtract the band, you don't have much left. And I put in there that it goes to the building fund because I thought you would rather know that it doesn't go to somebody in the church. It doesn't go to the minister's salary. It doesn't go to anybody else's salary. It goes for the building fund. And I believe that that church has a special place in this community because it is one of the oldest 5 churches in the whole county. It was founded in 1812. And I believe that it has a special place in this community. And keeping that church up, I think we've heard nobody complain about the money going to the building fund to help keep that church in proper order. Many people say they pass by that church and they notice whether it's being kept up or it's deteriorating. And that's the whole purpose of the square dances. The caller, Sherwood Ingersoll, he donates his time. So what you've done here, I think, is sad, very sad. That's all.
My husband and I have attended a few of those square dances, and some of the other of us here, and I can attest that most of those people that do go there are really quite elderly senior citizens, and they probably don't have much money to spend, and you're really hurting them as well as the church. And I feel that the church is not going to be hurting the community at all. It only benefits, and benefits all the people. And I think it's just a disgrace to, refuse to let them earn what little bit of money that they can get by having their square dances. And I think most people would be in support of it.
The fact remains that I have been shown and have the law which specifically states that fundraising events may not take place in municipal buildings. I'm sorry. Much as I would like to help the church, I just cannot go against the law. It's not my law, it's New York State law.
Mr. Supervisor, could I ask you a question in that regard? If they come in here and hired a band, didn't make any money, could they have the square dance here?
If they charge money, do they charge money to get in?
Well, they have to pay the band. They'll put a bucket barrel outside or something. If they don't make any money, is that what's keeping them from here, is because they make money off of this? Probably. So if they make this a nonprofit dance, then you would consider approving it.
I'd have to check with the law on that.
You do have the law in your office, so is it something you can put your hands on quickly? Maybe, I'd like to see it. I've never heard of such a thing.
I'll get it later.
We'd like to know what the law
Any other, yes?
On behalf of the volunteer firefighters, I'd like to publicly thank the people for supporting us and allowing us our resolution for our awards benefits program. I'd also like to thank the town board for moving ahead with that and getting it on the ballot. Thank you very much again. It will mean a lot to us.
I just received a letter from the Association of Towns, and it was addressed to me because when we were going through the insurance for the town, one of the concerns was at the time that they might be canceling our insurance because of the high rates, and the insurance was getting, right out of hand. So one of the things that they asked us to do is possibly join. Thank you. This is, from here. They wrote us a letter asking if we would be willing to join a co-op for insurance, which means that municipalities would be self-insured. I, at the time, wrote back under the direction of the town board saying that we would be interested. I attended the Association of Towns meeting on that. They did vote to look into it, and after the association passed this vote, and it was a statewide vote for all towns, the insurance markets decided to soften and not be so restricted, and they started restoring municipal insurance. This was right at the time when ours was canceled. They are talking about bringing this up again, and you might want to look into this as a town board. I'll give this information to Claudia. She can contact the people if she'd like. It's a good way to keep the controls of insurance down, because once these insurance people get out of control, they want to raise prices, and they don't think there's anything people are going to do. But the minute municipalities started talking self-insured, they all of a sudden said, well, I guess we better drop our rates and start insuring municipalities again. So it really was a good political move by the Association of Towns, so I'll give this information to Claudia. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it. And I would just like to say, in closing on the budget, Jess and Jim can attest to the fact, they've been on the board as senior members, that never have I ever seen a budget passed the same night of the public hearing. The whole purpose of a public hearing on a budget is to listen to the comments from the citizens, dissect what they say, go back, sit down, and go through the budget. You always inflate your budget. Everyone knows that. That's the whole purpose of a public hearing. You go back as a town board, you sit down, you say, okay, where can we cut? And you start cutting line on a budget. That's the whole purpose of a public hearing. Tonight, what this was a mockery. I don't even know why you held a public hearing. I guess because it's the law. You had to. But to sit there and listen to people come up and spend their time tonight giving you comments saying that we don't want an increase of 50% in our taxes, and it is an astronomical amount. I don't ever remember the tax increase going up this much in the town. I think it's a disgrace. I think it's an infringement on the taxpayers, and I think it's abuse of your power. I am thoroughly disgusted with this board that you've just voted on this tonight without any consideration of the taxpayers, and I hope that you people will take this into consideration when this tax goes up. You are putting a major financial burden on the taxpayers of this town.
Any other public
This is referring to last month's meeting at the tirade against Howard Rose. Now, I thought that was very much out of line, and I don't care which one of you people sitting up here, you deserve more respect than that was shown Howard. And I felt very badly for him, and as supervisor, I felt that you should have stopped it. And I don't care which one of you are sitting there, you should not be subject to the yelling that he was. And I just think that you should maybe be aware of it and another time put a stop to it before it starts, because it really is not good public relations for the board to see that, or for the people that are watching it on cable. I just felt very badly for Howard. He does deserve better than that. He's an honest councilman, and I think that the people of Volney better appreciate what they have. That's all I've got to say.
Hi, I'm Walter Howard, and every time this year the budget comes up, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Well, this year's it's bad, so why don't you people make a commitment tonight for next year to come back down, work at it. Don't start the week before and the month before. I'm sure you put a lot of time in it. But put an honest commitment in for us. It's nothing we can do now, it's too late. But for next year's budget to come down, is that feasible, do you believe? Do you think you can come back down, or is it just gonna continue to go up?
I can't answer because I don't know what's going to happen in.
I know, but I mean, is there an effort that you can set a goal, like say, we're gonna go down to this? Is there any way we can do that? There's no way we can do that.
No way.
I have a question, it's not for myself, it's for someone else. The deputy dog control officer, will that be, where people can send in their names to become the deputy dog control officer? Or will you be appointing someone, and if you're going to appoint someone, do you have someone in mind this evening?
To answer your question, we voted upon the motion to advertise for positions. The deputy dog control officer was one of those positions that was going to be advertised for. And it will probably not be put in place until next year after we appoint one. Anything else? Yes.
Mark General. I want to know how the septic system works over there, why it wasn't put up for bid. Or if it was, why, maybe I didn't see it.
It was not put out for bid. We met the council. I asked for recommendations. It had to be done almost immediately. I could not wait for a bid.
The money went to the town of Claremont. Nobody in Volney could do that work. Nobody in Volney could do that work.
I imagine there are those that could. I asked for recommendations, received that as a recommendation.
I might add that the reason I didn't pay the bill because I felt that there are a number of good quality contractors in this town that could have handled it, but they weren't even approached.
I need a septic system with a dog kennel for half of the next bid next to me. I would put up with it. Howard was in control, and he had to do it by law, yes, which is different now.
At the last board meeting, I was empowered to proceed because it had to be done within a couple of weeks, or not at all. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Donna Kestner. I just wanted to know if someone could come maybe to the next meeting or maybe even a couple of meetings from now to let us know whether the data collection is mandated by the state or not. We keep hearing it back and forth from Howard to Claudia, and I would like somebody to read something or bring something again, or if you've already done that. Because I wondered, are we still going to need 3 assessors once we have all this data collection?
3 part-time assessors, yes.
We're still going to need all those 3 people?
Yes.
You had to collect physical inventory information on all the properties. That is state mandated. However, due to the inaction of the prior board in getting started on it, we were under a time restraint. The only thing that the state would accept as our honestly trying to fulfill this obligation so that we wouldn't start paying fines as of June 1st of this past year was to be under a binding contract to have an outside firm do this. And that is why we had to do it.
At this time, Claude, I have to disagree. I can't remember the year, but we made her pass a resolution for the assessors to do the data collection, and they refused to do their own work, to get the inventory in. They refused to do it. That's why the state come down on us. So don't blame it on the prior board. The assessors would not do their job.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
And that is not one of the
Well,
jobs. You know just as well as I do. Absolutely not.
Keeping an inventory is their job.
Keeping the inventory once it has
Getting the
been
inventory
gathered,
is
but
their job.
just...
To answer Donna's question, I will tell you that back in the spring of this year, we had the state here. Janet LaSalle from the New York State Equalization Assessment was here. It was videotaped. It was on TV. I posed the question to her, is full-fledged data collection mandatory? She said no. Physical characteristics is, which is what Claudia is really referring to, and that's what the assessors refused to do on their own. That was just a simple task of taking a photo, getting measurements, and physically writing down a description of the property. That's the only thing required by law, which they could have done but they didn't want to, and this town board wanted people to go in your homes and get information inside and out, and that's where we're at now.
No, this board did not want people to go in your homes. They wanted to comply so that the state wouldn't start fining the town.
Well, then that's not part of the complying anybody.
You don't have to let anybody in your
You don't
home.
have to ask them. It's not even a requirement.
Is there any other public comment? Yes, Chris.
Christine Rose. I just have a question. Every month we are getting a letter read to us by this assessment services company. I attended a meeting quite a few months ago where there were some representatives of the company here, and they said that they would be meeting publicly on occasion with the people. I've been waiting and hoping there was going to be another meeting, so I have some questions I'd like to pose to them. Do you know when there may be a meeting, and if there isn't one scheduled, could you request that perhaps they hold another public
There
meeting?
will be more public meetings when the impact statements come out in February, and there will be other meetings after that. There's several steps to the process. It's just, at this point, they have reviewed some of the properties that are not finished. As soon as they're on to the next stage, there will be public meetings.
Any more public comment?
Donna Kessler again. Every month I hear when Byron reads the highway superintendent's report, since the highway superintendent is never here, about paving driveways. What does that mean every month? I don't understand what that refers to.
I'm not sure myself as far as
What
paving driveways.
he means is not putting in driveways. It is the responsibility of the property owner to buy the sluice, the driveway culvert, that has to comply with either the county or especially the town roads, if it's on a town. And they have to provide the culvert, and I think the town highway will give them 2 or 3 loads of gravel, whatever it is. But they have to make sure that the culvert is pitched right, or there's no sense of putting it in. It's the responsibility of the highway department and the supervisor to make sure that that is put in properly. So that's what he's saying. He's got so many hours putting in. Make sure the culvert's put in properly and pitched, and 2 or 3 loads of gravel, whatever it takes.
Anything else? Future meeting dates, December 8th. I'm sorry. Yes.
When I started, I asked you about if you could justify the salary increases. And I didn't hear any justification. I don't think any of us did, really. I'd like to know, has there been a change in the expenses in the town there that you need to increase that much? And have you lost any revenue?
I think about the only revenue we have lost is earned interest from the money that sits in the bank, because that's about the only thing we've lost.
And another thing is, why did you hold a public hearing on the budget?
To hear your comments.
Well, you didn't listen to anything we said. Did you?
I heard you.
And what did it mean to you? You're reaching in our pocket. You're talking to these people that Hammer Mill shuts down for 3 months. Miller's is going to lose a lot of people. Northern Ready Mix over there hasn't been working, and a lot of them that I spoke to are probably not going back to work. I can't understand the fact that you three feel that you can take that money away from these people this way. I can't understand that. And that you can sit there and justify that to yourself, but you can't justify it to us. Because we don't believe that you need that increase in taxes like that. You've gone to assessing our property, so our property goes up. Now you're taking money out of for these taxes. I'm not against the firemen, but we were told a one figure and now you've raised that. I don't think you're being fair to us. And I don't think you're being honest, to tell you the truth. And I didn't vote for you, and boy, if you come up again, I'm not voting for you again.
Wonderful thing about America, you don't have to vote for anybody you don't want. Any other comments? Then I shall announce future meeting dates. December 8, 1992, we'll have a work session to sign bills at 7 p.m. December 10 will be the regular town board meeting, also at 7. December 29, we'll have the year-end bill audit meeting.
We actually signed the bill.
Yes.
That's a town board meeting. That's a regular.
Yes, special town board meeting. To sign the bills. I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose. Aye. Councilwoman Smart. Aye. Councilman Warner. Aye. Supervisor McFarland.
Aye.